Think about it. When was the last time you had a conversation about how much money you have in your bank account with a friend? Probably not recently. But this morning, we're going to change that. Joining me now is Sam Barry, who is not only the editor-in-chief of Glamour, but also the host of the podcast, She Makes Money Moves. Hello, Sam.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this with us. Thank you for the podcast. I love the name. So your number one goal when you became editor-in-chief of Glamour magazine was to open up the dialogue about women and their finances in a magazine that's traditionally fashion-driven.
Right.
So what was the conventional thinking there?
So I really wanted to go in and talk about money. My first print issue was the money issue, because ultimately I think finance is the ultimate feminist issue, right? Owning your money, asking for more, knowing what you're doing with your money, super important. And more we're hearing from women that feel left out of the conversation. So everything we do at Glamour, when we do honest money tours and videos, women talk about their salaries, we talk about negotiation, we talk about when you have money in the bank, what do you do with that? And we wanted to put that all together in the podcast. And here's the thing, we earn less on the dollar, right? There's a pay gap for women, but we're also not asking for more when we should, and when we do have the money, we're not making the most of it. Women are leaving money sitting in their bank account when they shouldn't be, and I think we at Glamour, we've always done service journalism for women, and I think this is a great service journalism for women in 2020.
I love that term, service journalism, because you're upfront about what it is that you're doing and how important it is for women in particular. So how do you cover money on your website? Because I think that's an important tool for women in particular.
We talk about it a lot of different ways. We want to feel like it is, we did a package last year that was get that extra 10 grand, right? Something tangible that you could, whether it's get an extra 10 grand in your negotiation, in savings, in investment, we talked in tangible amounts. But also, we go back to basics with some women, right? A lot of women and men in America don't know what their credit score is. That is so important, those basics. You need to know what your credit score is in order to improve it, again, to make the most out of your money. There are women in America that we've heard from that feel left out of the investment conversation, and we really want to break that down. In the world that we live in now, where there's Robinhoods and all these apps that make it the entry point for investment, buying a share of Apple or Tesla, which you would have done really well this week if you had, I think we want to have that conversation with women so they feel part of the conversation. So we talk about credit score, we talk about investment, we talk about asking for more, and we also talk, a lot of our women are at a time in their life where they're making significant decisions, whether financially in terms of buying a house, when it comes to their fertility, they're making big life decisions. Right. We want to help them on that journey.
It's very important because saving is, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's tough to save, but you're giving women and perhaps men some of those tools, which is super important. Talk to me about your podcast.
Yes.
And you interview financial experts. You're an expert yourself. What can listeners expect?
Well, I think one of the ways that we really hook the podcast, She Makes Money Moves, is we center each episode around a woman's story. You hear from that woman. You hear that woman tell her financial challenges or questions. So whether it is a woman that went from being an undocumented immigrant, where she spent her whole life working in cash, to now having a green card and trying to understand how she makes the most of the credit system in America. We talk to a woman going through a divorce. What does that look like for you financially? What do you need to do to fail-safe your future?
So you get into the personal narrative, so you're putting a face to each story, each financial story. I could talk to you for hours. This is live television. I suspect you're going to be back. I know you're covering Fashion Week as well. It is always a pleasure.
Lovely.
We're never getting rid of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Check out glamour.com for all of Sam's advice and listen to her podcast, She Makes Money Moves.
Thank you so much. That was so good. That goes so